Maybe someday. There we go. Hello, everyone. This is the Low Castle, and we are coming well past when we said we were going to. I forgot, and then we had some tech issues. I didn't forget. I lost track of time. So I don't know if you're a gamer, but I'm like a huge gamer. And my cousin just got me into some new game that I'm losing track of time over. So that's it's been a nice distraction lately. So everyone, this is Matthew Butts. He is the county chair, correct? For it's Kern County?
Vice chair.
Vice chair, sorry.
Of the Kern County in California. It's the county north of LA.
Okay. So what's that like then? Because that's got to be
well, I'm like right on the edge of Kern County. So I can almost throw a rock to the LA County line. And so I go to LA County, Lancaster, Palmdale, the Antelope Valley for like Walmart and stuff like that. Restaurants mostly. So I have to deal with the LA County regulations on the lockdown stuff more than I do the Kern County lockdowns. The Kern County sheriff has said that he's not enforcing. He's not going to be arresting people or fining people for masks. He's not doing that. But in LA County, I was just where I just came from, the mall. I was making some returns, and the lady at the desk, she was nice. She had asked me politely to cover my nose because I had the mask on, but she wanted me to cover my nose, and she's like, "I know it's really annoying. I hate it too, but the health department sent one of their Nazis over here the other day, and he was checking on people. I thought he was some guy creeping on the ladies in here, and so I had to go talk to him.
He was
probably. I was returning some stuff for my girlfriend, so I was in a ladies store, and she said some guy in his 20s just was way out of place, and so she had to go talk to him, and he was an inspector from the health department. She called him a Nazi too, which was uplifting to me. It's like, all right, I'll listen to you. I'll comply. I'll cover my nose. You seem to be cool. But yeah, they basically, he was looking at customers to make sure people had the face mask on and had their noses covered, and that groups were social distancing. Otherwise, they were going to ding the business for not enforcing mask regulations. And then employees, if it was an employee not having their nose covered, then it would be worse on the business. And so it's basically, you wear the mask or we will ruin your life.
Yeah, there's a special place in hell for people like that, I swear.
Mm-hmm. He was straight out of Atlas Shrugged, the mooch guy from the book.
I know this won't surprise you, but I've never read that.
I've only watched videos. I actually haven't read a lot of the big libertarian books. I've read Economics in One Lesson. and Scott Horton's Fool's Errand, but I haven't really read the other books. I've just watched videos of people talking about them, book summaries, or in several times. Pretty much on the Mises Institute channel, Mises Media, you can pretty much just listen to a summary of each book that's about an hour long and get all the main points. Anatomy of the State, is a lot of it centered around the difference, why you shouldn't be saying we when you're referring to the government, kind of thing. It's them and us. There's no we involved.
Yeah, I think the only books that I've read, and it was audiobooks anyway, so that's doubly sacrilegious, but I listened to Black Rednecks and White Liberals, because that is actually just as much about being Scottish as it is about anything else. And
I know a lot of Black Rednecks.
Yeah,
I know a lot of from northern Kentucky, just outside of Louisville. I love
the way Kentucky people say Louisville. Like it's just a muttered
That's how it's
word.
pronounced. It's not Louisville. It's not
No, it's not.
Louisville.
Louisville.
It's not. It's Louisville. And one of my friends, his stepdad was black, and there wasn't no he was his great grandparents were slaves kind of thing, and he had a Confederate flag flying in his front yard. So that symbols like that was very normalized to me growing up, because I just see them all the time. And a couple of my black friends that would wear a shirt that had the Confederate flag on it, and once I asked somebody one time why, and it was like, because I want to. That's why. And I was like, all right, that's a pretty damn good answer. All right.
So the thing is, the Confederate flag, culturally, where it comes from, it is a St. Andrew's cross. It's a stylized Scottish flag, because the people who would have formed the Confederacy would have been culturally very Scottish.
Oh,
so,
really? Okay.
Yeah, it's so that the bars basically are the St. Andrew's cross, which is taken from Scotland. So I understand. I feel like people in the South don't even understand why they resonate to that, or at least can't explain it very well. And it's always a touchy topic, because you can understand why some people would be offended by it.
Right.
And I also understand, just because I've studied my own culture so much, where it really comes from. Kind of the irreverent attitude towards authority that it has. And I think that's what people really latch onto, because and they all, you hear this from a lot of like white liberals, that's the loser's flag.
Yeah.
But there's something to be said for, that group of people has continually lost wars throughout their existence for their independence. So there is a little bit of like making a symbol out of that. Like, you know what, we've lost a lot, but we haven't given up yet.
Yeah.
I think
the whole Civil War is just so tragic. I like, there's no sense in trying to pick sides on something so horrible in our history.
right.
In Kentucky, where I'm born and raised, our brothers fought brothers in that war in Kentucky. The male population fighting age dropped by like 60% in Kentucky. 60% of the male population died in that fucking war on both sides. And for what exactly? The northern states, they were nullifying the federal government on the Fugitive Slave Act. They were saying, no, if a slave comes across our border, he is a free man, and if you try to take him, we will have a problem. In South Carolina, in one of their declarations for their Confederacy, it was one of the first things they said was that the northern states were using nullification to stop the Fugitive Slave Act. And the northern states, they didn't want to be associated with slavery anymore. They were probably more happy to just let the South secede. Lincoln is not the hero that people make him out to be at all. Reconstruction, after Civil War, like it wasn't rainbows and stuff for black people, former slaves in the South. It was Reconstruction was worse than slavery in a lot of ways. They had a cultural, they had a beautiful culture, even though they were enslaved. That out in defiance, their culture was pretty awesome, and they just tried to destroy the culture that whatever was left of that they had brought from the culture that they had brought from Africa with them and preserved. The North tried to destroy that with Reconstruction. And
I feel like it was one of those wars where they're like, as far as the sides that were fighting, there were no good guys. There was just a lot of victims, just all over the place.
Which I guess it's really more. That's really just about every war. There's just more victims and no good guys. The only good guys are maybe the conscripted or brainwashed soldiers.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, everyone, when people like really like to shit on Confederate soldiers, they were almost all conscripts.
Yeah, they were conscripts, or if they did fight voluntarily, is because the North came and destroyed their town. After this, I remember there was a movie that was based on real events. Can't remember what it's called, but it was about a Confederate soldier and a Union soldier. Years later, the Confederate soldier came and was coming to get his revenge on the Union soldier, because after the Civil War, they came to his house and burned his house with his wife and babies in it, and burned them alive. And while he was forced on the ground, not even was able to allow to die with them, had to watch them burn. And it was. And like the guy in Louisville, the statue in Louisville at the park that is being that they want to tear down. He was pardoned from his separation from the Union, and when he created the Parks Network, the city's parks, he developed that. Cool. And then before that. Before the war, he only joined the war because Louisville and areas were being attacked by soldiers. Like, they were trying to be a neutral state, and they were, and the Union soldiers would come in and destroy the town.
So what you're saying is America created its own enemies by its tactics.
Yes,
and we haven't learned that lesson in the last 150 years.
Basically, there was a lot of people, they were just defending their homes. Mm-hmm. That's the stories that I've heard, was that they didn't really have a choice. They didn't, they weren't.
And it's not like they had the internet to really know what was going on. There's an army invading. They don't know why they're fighting.
Right.
Especially if you're talking deep South Celts, you're talking about a fairly undereducated population anyway. A lot of them probably couldn't read, had no idea. They could shoot though.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So now that we've rabbit trailed onto the Civil War for the first 15 minutes.
Well, I wanted to make sure that everyone was going to call me racist in the first 15 minutes. So.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, we got to get that out of the way. I mean, but we're white guys, so automatically, I feel. Well,
I'm a big Mises Caucus guy, so I had to give them what they wanted to hear. So
yeah. So they'll be calling you Tom Woods next. So, we've talked about this. He's not my favorite person, and it's got nothing to do with ideology. I just find him kind of boring. Yeah,
right.
Nothing frustrates me more than the people who are like, "Well, he went to a conference that had a Confederate flag once. That means he hates black people." It's like, I could not imagine being so disingenuous about someone else.
This was he's talked about this. This was before he was a libertarian. He was a neocon. Him kind of hanging out with the paleo guys. He was like a paleo neocon or something. And then Rothbard had tried to come in, and Hoppe and those guys, Lou Rockwell, they came in and they was trying to coalition with these code warriors like Pat Buchanan, who was they took the idea they took the idea of pre-Code War of we're going to go back to a republic after we beat the Soviet Union, and so they were former code warriors that that wanted to go back to being a republic. They wanted to, they didn't want it to be an empire. They just thought that that this was necessary to stop the Soviets. And then George Bush won, and so America was solidified as an empire.
Yeah.
So I think that's how Tom got in with Rothbard and those guys. It's kind of through that coalition.
So he changed his mind, like people do.
Yeah.
Well, so I actually get flack for
I could be wrong on the details there. Don't quite quote me on that. It might be, but I'm thinking that's how the story went. I think Jeffrey Tucker was somehow involved in getting Tom Woods to that League of South thing. I think Jeffrey Tucker was involved in writing those Ron Paul newsletters everybody cries about.
I don't know who that is. Jeffrey Tucker.
He's a European immigrant. He has to be because of his accent. But he's kind of like he's.
Oh, that guy. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, his voice is very leaves an impression on you. You can really recognize him from his voice.
Isn't he one of the guys that like the left libertarians love though?
Yes.
So, man, this libertarians, man. Libertarians.
Jeffrey's kind of gone through all the libertarian groups, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, but he's a big Mises Institute guy, but he's also like I guess he's also kind of a beltway guy, like Gary Johnson. He's kind of got one foot in there, one foot in the Mises Institute side of things. And then he I don't know, he had Richard Spencer on a show, that neo-Nazi guy. Yeah. And instead of, refuting his arguments like Dave Smith did when Dave had him on, Jeffries just screamed at him the whole time. So I
feel like the best way to deal with Richard Spencer is to let him keep talking. Because the more that guy talks, the stupider he sounds. Dave
was really able to pin him down on, well, how are you going to enforce this ethno state? How are you going to make it happen? You have this area that's now your ethno state, but there are people that are there now that aren't white. So what are you going to do about it? Kind of thing. And really pinned him in the corner, and for the so-called libertarian alt-right pipeline, he was really, he's helped, break that by having these conversations that people shame him for. But he's brought libertarians away from.
Did he ever debate Vox Day?
Who?
Vox Day. Did he ever debate Vox Day?
I don't know. I've never heard that name.
Oh. Be happy about that. So I feel like that would, because Richard Spencer's an idiot. Vox Day is really smart, just evil.
Yeah,
it's kind of the difference. But anyway, we've got our 20 minutes of racism out of the way.
Yeah.
How do you feel about where liberty is at? Where what does the name Low Castle mean? Hi, Carl. I missed you, buddy. Low Castle is just something that I thought sounds cool. It doesn't really mean much.
I thought it had something to do with Dungeons and Dragons.
So, I mean, probably a little bit in the back of my mind, but the Low Castle in my mind is like the tagline I use is, it's the last bastion of free thought. It's like the Low Castle, it's the last castle. After this, the dam breaks and the commies come through. It just sounded cool to me, and probably because I play too much D&D.
So kind of how I feel about liberty right now is, well, I'm not necessarily sure. I kind of have in one hand the white pill, in one hand the black pill. Black pill being kind of cynical and nihilistic, and the white pill being hope. Ron Paul, he's always talked very optimistic, and from his experience, I imagine it is. I mean, how many years was he completely alone with nobody standing beside him, nobody, not knowing anybody supported him. And now he 8 years after he's ran for president, people are still showing up in droves. People who weren't around during that time showing up to this stuff.
So something I talked to Sam Robb about. So the LP just ran a nobody. We ran a nobody who was a really safe.
She checked enough boxes for enough delegates at the convention.
Yeah,
and she wasn't the.
She was no one's favorite, but everyone's like third favorite, basically.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I was really big on Hornberger.
Was that you that I saw a couple days ago that felt like that fell apart?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so that was
it. It definitely fell apart. He didn't want to listen to nobody. Scott Horton was one of his advisors, and really, I think Scott convinced him to run, or he was the big hype man for him, for our crowd, and
because I remember interviewing Horton after Hornberger jumped in, and he was definitely the head cheerleader.
Yeah, and and then Scott quit on him because Jacob just flat out ignored his advice. Like, he did exactly what Scott told him not to do, and I forget what it was now. I
felt like he was playing offense at the end of the campaign cycle when he needed to be playing defense, because he had it wrapped up.
I don't think he needed to play either. He just needed to give his positive message for liberty.
Yeah.
He just needed what he would call his positive message for liberty, and he would have waltzed right in. But he in that last debate especially, he gave about 20 minutes to Jorgensen. He kept saying her name. It was like, you can take a shot at her vaguely that everybody will get, and you don't have to say her name given her time. Like, what's wrong with you? I threw my phone.
And you look like a bully, because Jorgensen is not Hillary Clinton. There is a difference. When Trump went after Clinton, everyone was like, okay, well, Clinton's kind of a bitch. Jorgensen is a sweet grandma, whatever else you can say about her, and attacking her is not a great look.
Yeah. He kind of did he did the same thing that Mark Whitney did to himself going after him.
Yeah.
It was like, why are you repeating that guy's mistakes? Like, he just failed that with you. Mm-hmm. You're doing the same thing. And he's not ahead of you.
Exactly the same way, because go ahead.
He was leading. She wasn't ahead of him. She was firmly in third place before that debate. But there was a lot. She got sympathy support, and from out of Jacob's camp, he lost votes to her.
I don't even think it's as much that he lost votes. I think most of his votes were solid. What he lost was that vote in the second and third and fourth round, where people were like, okay, my guy is out. Mm-hmm. What does the rest of my top three look like? I think he bumped himself down in those people's estimation, and that's what killed him.
Yeah. It would have been a much better campaign. Jorgensen was not ready to be the nominee. She started building her campaign team the day after she was nominated. Vermin Supreme and Jacob Hornberger were the only, and Adam Kokesh, I suppose, was really the only people that really had infrastructure set up. I don't know how Daniel was. I know you were involved with Daniel, but I don't know how vast his team was.
So he had a big team, but he didn't have a good campaign manager. That was his biggest drawback. There wasn't that one person to oversee his campaign, and that's what sunk him, in my opinion.
Yeah, we had Jake Porter, and while communication,
I love Jake. He's a good guy.
And while communication was definitely lacking, and I was getting frustrated in the beginning over communication, things really pulled together soon, shortly after. And yeah, we did great, and we were ready to hit the ground running. We had a lot of pledges of donations for after the nomination. You know, people don't really want to donate to the in the Libertarian primary, but you know, they want but they want to donate to the nominee. And there was some people who didn't donate to Jorgensen.
So it's funny because I remember a lot of people talking about you know, the Libertarian Party needs to spend more money on these campaigns. It's like I don't think you people understand how broke this party is.
We're membership funded.
Yeah.
And I'm a construction worker. I do concrete. I paint houses. You know, I get up at 4:30 a.m. To drive. I ride. I ride towards the coast about 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and you know, I don't get home till 7, making, you know, wages. And most people are just like me in this party. Blue collar guy.
For a party that's supposed to be full of millionaires and billionaires trying to dodge taxes, we're a lot of poor people.
That really irritates me.
It gets pretty frustrating. Like, you're taking all that Koch brothers money. Like, God, I wish, please.
Like, those guys haven't been involved since the 80s. And the only time they're libertarian is when it benefits their bottom line. Fuck them.
Yeah. I think they get a lot of flack from libertarians. They are more of our allies than
I suppose
say,
so.
but they're not purely libertarian.
I respect their philanthropy. I respect their philanthropy. The one Koch brother that died, he was all about charity. But when it came, I'm just saying, when it came to regulatory capture, they were happy to use the government to benefit themselves. In that sense, but you know, I don't mean to rag on them too much. Their charity work has been fascinating. When I was reading that stuff when he had died, I really got a newfound respect. But then again, I can't help but to have a little disdain for him too. You know, that's the way people are. They're gray. They're not black or white.
Yeah. So where do we go from here? Because I feel like the LP actually did a lot better in 19 than it did in 20. Like, we got slaughtered a lot in 20. Whereas in 19, we were pulling off a lot of victories, like small ones, but a lot of victories.
I mean, that might be a trend that we start seeing, is like you know, kind of I suppose our vote totals might be increasing every year, but the percentages that come out for the other parties are always going to be better in a presidential year. It's a lot easier to kind of get our base out in an odd year.
You know, our base is a little more energized and will come out for those races a lot more, I suppose. So I think it also could be the kind of person that votes in a year where there isn't a congressional election, a senatorial election, or a presidential election is typically more the kind of person that knows what the fuck they're voting for. And it's easier for us to reach those people because they pay more attention and are probably seeing through the game a little bit better.
So as far as like kind of a blueprint of where, you know, what people should be focusing on, I can only talk about myself. You know, I'm going to be trained as a campaign manager. I have a guy here in town who wants to run for office. He was saying he wants to run for Congress, and I'm like, against Kevin McCarthy, and I'm like, yeah, you can scream at him and he'll ignore you, and you'll be an alternative, but okay, so what? You know, there's this water board district that we can maybe get you on. something else. And so Kalish Morrow, who won her race that the caucus endorsed, and Brent Olson, who's also loosely affiliated, that was her campaign manager. They're going to be doing like candidate training and campaign manager training. And so I'm setting a few calls up with them between me and the guy Kelly Cardin, who is going to be running for some kind of office in the next year or two. And I think,
do you have somebody doing comms training as well?
I'm so green. I have no idea what you're talking about. What's comms training?
Like communications, media relations, social media, digital footprints, all that stuff.
No, we haven't gotten that far. Kelly wants to kind of hold off until after the holidays before we talk about it too much more. But he definitely seems to be all in. So I suppose sometime in January, that's when the two of us, he's going to be, he's going to be trained as a candidate. I'm going to start training as a campaign manager. And I think that's what a lot of us need to do, is to find other libertarians that have had success and be like, hey, can you teach me how to do what you did? And
teach me how to do it.
And I don't think being a candidate is for me. Right. I feel like I feel like it just wouldn't work out for me.
But I'm with you in that.
But as somebody who works, who can work behind the scenes, that kind of thing, I feel like that's more my lane. And so yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And I think a lot of other people should also, try to get trained on being a campaign manager, or like you say, comms training. Let's get professional with this shit. I don't know how much longer we have. We have, this country has an expiration date, and if we don't have some infrastructure built up before the collapse, something very ugly is going to rise out of the ashes.
Mm-hmm. I mean, so like, I don't want to dog on anyone too hard, but I think the biggest mistake in that last cycle, and why I harp on comms so much, is they dropped Caitlin.
Yeah, she was amazing. Yeah,
Caitlin is the best in the movement, and anyone else that you get is a downgrade. And I even say that about myself.
She's, if she's not the best, she is one of the best. Jorgensen had maybe 500 followers on Facebook when she was nominated, and then within 2 weeks she had 250,000 followers on Facebook. That wasn't because she was just elected as a nominee, because the growth after Caitlin dropped, I think she hit.
It was after Caitlin dropped where they suddenly started making all the faux pas on Twitter.
Yeah, that, and also the growth stopped. The growth on social media stopped. The trend, it didn't stop necessarily, but it went skyrocket to
yeah.
And they were just posting off their own whim, putting their own opinions out there. Even apparently even on Spike's page, somebody had done that. Called 28 murders genocide of 28 murders of trans people, a genocide. It's horrible, but I take issue with calling something like that a genocide.
So that speaks to a language issue that we have in our country, because everything has to be dialed to 11 right now. Like, to say that 28 people were murdered, that's terrible. That can be terrible on its own. Like when so for me, the buzzword terrorism bugs me, because terrorism has a definition, and sometimes terrible things happen that aren't terrorism, they're just murder on a large scale. And like when the Las Vegas shooting,
intent might be very malicious, but it's not terrorism.
Yeah.
It has to have a political meaning to it.
Right.
Um,
And like when the Las Vegas shooter situation happened, everyone's like, well, this is domestic terrorism, or at least you would be saying that if it wasn't a white guy. It's like, well, no, it's not because he's white. It's because we don't see a motivation that has anything to do with politics or religion.
if that guy was a Muslim and did that, he would likely be considered a terrorist because he would be acting out in response to the genocide of his people back in the Middle East from our government.
Flip side, if he was a Muslim and just shot a bunch of people and we never knew why, we couldn't just assume it was terrorism, because being Muslim doesn't mean that you're shooting a bunch of people because of Islam. So
True.
it's like,
the
definition has to matter,
right? And there has to be the motivation must be political.
Yeah.
But a lot of the Muslim attacks that they call terrorist, it's the political motivation is that they are is that their people are being slaughtered back in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm. So Carl makes a good point here. I think reaching back a little bit, talking about Joe, is they tried to hit more demographics, and that just pissed people off. And I agree with that. I think anytime you play the demographic game, you're playing to lose.
I think so too. I want someone who is authentically libertarian, who, if they're going to speak about culture, not to like the cultural war that seems to be going on, if they're going to speak on that, to not alienate anybody on either side.
So we want Spike. I think we can agree on that.
I was saying since day one that if he were to run for the top of the ticket, I would be the first on the bandwagon. If some big name runs, which there's rumors going on that somebody in Mises circles is planning on running. Not sure who yet. Hoping to find out soon. So I would probably have a very hard decision to make if Spike runs for the top of the ticket between, with the Mises Caucus, I was a state organizer. We would also be working with whatever campaign that is. And then I would probably have to, so if I were to work for Spike, I would probably have to recuse myself from being a state organizer. So I'm not in both camps.
So
it would be a hard decision for me to make
on that with me, because it's like, so the people that you're really into, the Tom Woods, the Jeff Deist, is that his name? Oh,
yeah, the president of the Mises Institute.
Yeah. So like those kind of people are really good VP nominees, because a vice presidential nominee is your policy wonk. If you look at the Republicans and Democrats, you can always see that. Not always, it's about 90% of the time. Kamala Harris is the policy wonk for that ticket. Pence was definitely the policy wonk for that ticket. The Libertarians screwed up and flipped the script and put the policy wonk at the top of the ticket and the energy guy that people like at the second slot, and it confuses people. Like, your entertainer has to be the top of your ticket. And your smart, nerdy person then needs to be able to fill in below them, and I think that person creates the tone for the campaign. Oh, we got a bad lag.
Right.
Oh, I can see it, but no sound. Oh, I'm sorry, everyone. We're having some technical issues.
This is where you and I really disagree, because you say that you think Tom is boring and would be VP. But I mean, I think he is entertaining when he speaks. I think he linked. Can you hear me?
Yeah, are you there?
I can hear you. Oh,
Okay.
shit!
Seems
My
like we
phone
got a
died.
couple seconds. Oh, that'll do it. Are you back?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
So my phone is on. So my phone is on 0% and it's on charger. It just dropped down. It's just been slowly dropping down. So I got to find
Okay.
another charger cord that'll actually work for my phone and log back in.
Okay.
Probably. All right. Good.
Okay. I will drop him down for now, and I'll just talk to the people. How is everyone doing? Carl, when is Jeb Bush running? When is Jeb Bush not running? Jeb Bush is running in our hearts all the time, in perpetuity. So maybe I am the one that's wrong on this. Maybe I can't identify what is entertaining to people. I just find I find most libertarian podcasters, myself included, often to just not be very entertaining. I think that we often get way in the weeds about things like policy and other issues like that, and we miss talking about things that matter to people. Let's see if he's back yet. I don't think he's back. I'll just do this for now. Yeah, I do need a Santa hat. Yeah, and like my father, I don't need a whole lot else to pull off Santa Claus. Oh, I'm getting old. Coming from my boy Carl. So I think I actually what I think it is libertarians are really analytical and are entertained by things that are analytical. And normal people look at that, say nerd, and roll on. And that is kind of how I view it. I know that if I had the choice to listen to a 2-hour dissertation on Austrian economics or watch PewDiePie play video games for 2 hours, I'm probably going to take the PewDiePie because I don't need someone to explain Austrian economics to me. Are you back yet? We're getting there. I think and there's nothing wrong with enjoying those kinds of things. I want to point that out. Like, I think that a lot of people, no matter what it is that makes you tick, don't understand how to appeal to people outside of their own genre of entertainment. I have way more than 2 unicorns in the background. You just can't see them all. This is one that my wife got me at a thrift store because when people don't know what to get me, they just get me unicorns. And then I have these 2 little guys that Elfie keeps getting bath bombs, and when unicorns come out, she gives them to me for some reason. And this is Boner the skeleton. He's a boner. So for those of you that will end up watching this or listening to this on Anchor instead, when I shoot the video portion of this, there's a shelf behind me that has a couple skeleton. There's a skeleton unicorn and a ceramic unicorn, and it's pretty, and there was much rejoicing. And I think that we're probably going to have to wrap here because I don't see him coming back, but we've had a good talk. You can call us all racist now. But I would definitely, if you have not read Black rednecks and white liberals, fix yourself, and genuinely get the audiobook, because he reads it. No, he doesn't read it. Who reads that? Who reads the? It is him. It is him. No, it's not. Okay. I'm trying to find it on Audible. But what I'm showing is Hugh Mann, which is the greatest stage name I've ever heard. And I'm definitely into that. The dude's voice is like perfect. Like, I would want him to narrate my life. So definitely go check out Black Rednecks and White Liberals. And then if you want more background on things like Richard Spencer that we talked about, a great book is Michael Malice's The New Right, which is funny because Spencer is actually back on the left. He voted for Biden. But yeah, we're going to wrap it here. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with us, and we'll see you next time.